I wasn't supposed to be home that night. If things had gone according to plan, I'd still be 3 states away, sitting in some forgettable hotel room, watching late-night television, counting down the hours until I could get back to my own bed. But fate had other ideas. I turned the key in the lock, stepping into the familiar quiet of our house. It was late, close to midnight. The living room was dark except for the soft glow of the kitchen nightlight. Everything felt untouched, exactly as I had left it before my trip. Except for one thing. A suitcase. Sitting by the front door, its wheels scuffed from travel, its handle still extended. My pulse quickened. Claire wasn't supposed to be home yet. She had spent the past 2 weeks working as a counselor at a summer camp, something she had done every year since we got married. But she was supposed to have returned 2 days ago. And yet, here was her luggage, still sitting by the door, as if she had just arrived. A sound came from upstairs, a drawer sliding shut. My body tensed. I took a slow, measured breath and stepped toward the staircase, my mind racing with possibilities. Maybe she had gotten in late and was just settling in. Maybe she hadn't expected me home yet and was surprised. Maybe. Then I saw her. Claire stood at the top of the stairs, frozen like a deer caught in headlights. She clutched a folded t-shirt to her chest, her knuckles white. But it wasn't her stillness that unnerved me. It was her face. She looked terrified. What are you doing here?" she stammered. I frowned. I wrapped up early. Took an earlier flight. What about you? You were supposed to be back 2 days ago. She swallowed hard, gripping the fabric in her hands like it was the only thing tethering her to reality. I watched her throat bob as she struggled for words, her lips parting but no sound coming out. Something was wrong. I took a step closer. Claire. She flinched, ever so slightly. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said the words that shattered everything. I cheated. The words hung in the air between us, sharp and cold, slicing through the quiet of the house like a blade. I stared at her, waiting for her to take it back, to laugh, to shake her head, to tell me it was some cruel, tasteless joke. But she didn't. Her chest rose and fell in uneven breaths. Her fingers twisted in the fabric of the shirt she was holding. And her eyes, wide, glassy, and filled with something I couldn't yet name, never left mine. You, what? My voice barely sounded like my own. Claire took a shaky step down the stairs. She swallowed. It happened at camp. I held up a hand, cutting her off. I needed a second. A minute. A year. A sound escaped me, something between a laugh and a scoff. This had to be a dream. Some bizarre nightmare. I'd wake up any second now, still in that hotel room, still 3 states away. But the sharp sting in my palm as I clenched my fist told me otherwise. You cheated on me, I repeated slowly, each word like a weight pressing down on my chest. She nodded, a single, almost imperceptible motion. With who? My voice was flat, hollow. Claire's gaze dropped to the floor. His name is Jake. Jake. I didn't know a Jake. She sucked in a deep breath. He was one of the counselors. He was, younger. How much younger? Silence. Claire. My voice dropped, sharp as glass. She looked up at me then, and the raw fear in her expression sent a chill down my spine. He was 18. I actually took a step back. Are you kidding me? She shook her head rapidly, tears welling up in her eyes. It wasn't, her voice cracked. It wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't plan it, I swear. It was just. What? My laugh was humorless. A mistake. A moment of weakness. She wiped at her face with the back of her hand. I was lonely, okay. You were gone. And he made me feel. Don't, I snapped. Don't you dare try to justify this. She flinched like I had hit her. I ran a hand through my hair, my pulse hammering in my ears. My wife, my Claire, had slept with a kid. An 18-year-old. Some punk barely out of high school. I felt sick. I turned away, staring blankly at the wall, trying to breathe. Trying to think. I'm sorry, she whispered. I squeezed my eyes shut. How many times? A strangled sob caught in her throat. Just twice. Just. Like that made it better. I opened my mouth, ready to say something, anything, when her voice cut through the silence again, softer this time. There's something else. I turned my head slowly, looking at her. Her lips were trembling. What else? My voice was barely above a whisper. Claire wrapped her arms around herself, her fingers digging into the sleeves of her sweater. She took a breath, shaky and uneven, and then. I also cheated on you, on our wedding day. For a moment, my brain refused to process the words. What? She looked up at me then, her face crumbling under the weight of what she had just confessed. The photographer, she whispered. His name was Daniel. Everything inside me went quiet. The world tilted. My breath left my lungs in a sharp exhale, and suddenly, I was no longer standing in our dimly lit hallway, listening to my wife destroy our marriage. I was back at our wedding, standing at the altar, looking at her, radiant and white, smiling up at me like I was the only man in the world. I was dancing with her at the reception, my hands on her waist, her fingers laced behind my neck. I was kissing her under the glow of the string lights, promising her forever. And all the while, she had already betrayed me. A low, humorless chuckle escaped me. My hands were shaking. Let me get this straight. I looked at her, my vision blurring at the edges. You slept with someone on our wedding day, and then did it again 13 years later. Claire whimpered, reaching for me. Please, I took a step back. Don't touch me. Her arms dropped to her sides. I let out a slow breath, my chest rising and falling in controlled fury. I felt like I was standing on the edge of something dark, something dangerous. I need you to tell me something, I said, my voice eerily calm. Are there more? Her brows knitted together. More what? I tilted my head slightly. More men, Claire. More affairs. Or were these just the ones you finally decided to tell me about? Tears spilled down her cheeks as she shook her head. No. I swear, it was just them. I stared at her, searching her face for any sign of a lie. But at this point, what did it matter? Something inside me had already broken. I inhaled deeply, then turned toward the front door. I needed air. I needed to get out of there before I said, or did, something I couldn't take back. Where are you going? Claire's voice was small, afraid. I paused with my hand on the doorknob. I don't know, I admitted. Then I walked out, leaving behind the ruins of the life I thought I had. I stepped outside, inhaling the cool night air like a drowning man breaking the surface. The street was quiet, empty, the soft hum of crickets filling the spaces where my thoughts should have been. I had no destination, no plan, just the overwhelming need to move, to put distance between myself and the house where my wife had just ripped my heart out. Claire had cheated on me. Twice. No, at least twice. On our wedding day, when I stood there like an idiot, vowing to love and cherish her for the rest of my life. And now, 13 years later, with some kid at summer camp. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. The betrayal didn't just burn. It seared. I walked, my mind racing in circles, replaying everything over and over. How many other moments had been lies? Had she ever actually loved me? Had I been nothing but some reliable fool she could keep around while she chased whatever fleeting thrill came her way? And why now? Why confess this now? I stopped at the corner of our block, staring blankly at a streetlight buzzing faintly in the darkness. She had looked genuinely scared when she saw me. Not nervous. Not guilty. Afraid. I turned, heading back toward the house. I needed answers. When I stepped inside, Claire was still standing at the base of the stairs, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her arms were wrapped around herself, her shoulders curled inward, like she was trying to disappear into herself. Her eyes snapped up when I shut the door behind me. I thought you left. I should have, I muttered. But I have questions. She swallowed, nodding quickly. Okay. I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my voice even. Why tell me now, Claire? What changed? She hesitated, and that hesitation sent a fresh wave of anger rolling through me. Tell me the truth, I said, my voice sharper now. Her lips parted, then trembled. Because she sucked in a breath. Because I thought you might find out. A humorless laugh burst out of me. Jesus Christ. That's it? You didn't come clean out of guilt, or because you actually respected me enough to be honest. You only told me because you were afraid you'd get caught. Tears spilled over her lashes. I didn't want to lose you. I stared at her. You lost me the second you touched them. She whimpered, covering her mouth with both hands. I should have felt something at the sight of her breaking down, some trace of pity, of lingering love. But all I felt was empty. I sat down on the couch, my elbows on my knees, rubbing my temples. Tell me everything. No more lies. Start from the beginning. She sniffled, wiping at her face. She hesitated. I met Daniel, the photographer, at the wedding rehearsal. I clenched my jaw. He was charming. Funny. And I was so nervous about the wedding, about everything changing, about making the wrong choice. I barked out a laugh. So you celebrated your doubt by sleeping with some guy behind my back. That's your defense? She flinched, but I didn't care. It wasn't planned, she said weakly. It just happened. They always say that, I muttered. She wrapped her arms around herself, shaking her head. It was stupid. I regretted it immediately. But I convinced myself that since it was before we actually said, I do, it didn't count. That it was just one bad mistake that wouldn't define our marriage. I scoffed. And then 13 years later, you did it again. Her breath hitched. It was different this time. I lifted my head slowly. How? She bit her lip, shifting on her feet like she was trying to find the right words. But there were no right words for this. I don't know, she admitted. I think I liked the attention. He was younger, so interested in me. It made me feel, she trailed off, struggling. What? I said coldly. She hesitated before whispering, wanted. Something snapped inside me. I surged to my feet, making her take a step back. You didn't feel wanted? I seethed. Are you kidding me, Claire? I spent 13 years loving you, choosing you, coming home to you. I built a life for us. I worked my ass off to make sure you were happy. I wanted you every damn day. She sobbed, shaking her head. I know. I know. But it wasn't enough, I finished bitterly. She broke down completely, collapsing onto the bottom step, her face buried in her hands. I turned away, breathing hard. This was it. The realization settled over me like ice. I could never look at her the same way again. The woman I had built my life with, the woman I had trusted beyond all reason, had never truly been mine. I took a slow breath, my mind shifting gears. If she could betray me like this, if she could break something I thought was unbreakable, then why should I take the high road? She wanted to feel wanted. Fine. I'd show her what it felt like to be replaced. A dark, bitter sort of clarity settled over me. Claire had no idea what was coming next. I stood there, staring at the woman I had spent 13 years building a life with, and all I felt was rage. Not the kind that burns hot and fades fast, but something colder. Sharper. A calculated sort of fury that made my mind crystal clear. Claire sat on the bottom step, sobbing into her hands like she was the victim here. Like she had lost something. No. I was the one who lost something. My marriage. My trust. My entire goddamn reality. And now. Now it was my turn. I took a slow breath, my heart still hammering in my chest. My hands were steady. My mind was sharp. I knew what I had to do. Claire had thrown away our marriage for a cheap thrill. Twice. So I was going to do something much worse. I was going to destroy her. But not with words. Not with screaming. Not even with divorce papers. No. I was going to cheat back. And I was going to make sure she felt it. Claire finally looked up, her face streaked with tears, her lips trembling. What happens now? I tilted my head slightly, letting a cold smile tug at my lips. That's up to you, isn't it? Her brows furrowed. What do you mean? I stepped closer, watching her flinch slightly. You had your fun, Claire. Now it's my turn. Her breath hitched. You cheated. Twice. On our wedding day. And again, 13 years later. So if you want to make this right, if you want even the slightest chance at fixing this, you're going to sit there and let me do the same. Her face drained of color. What? I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. You don't get to break our vows and expect me to just take it. You want to save this marriage? Then you'll understand when I say I need to, even the playing field. She shook her head rapidly. No, Alex. Please. Don't do this. I smirked. Why not? You did. That's different, she whispered. I let out a laugh. Different? Claire, the only difference is that I'm telling you about it before I do it. She reached for my hand, desperation in her eyes. I was stupid. I wasn't thinking. But you don't have to do this. I pulled away. Oh, but I do. She started crying again, shaking her head. Who? She whispered. I shrugged. I haven't decided yet. That was a lie. I already knew. Emily. She was Claire's best friend from college. Drop-dead gorgeous. Blonde, confident, a little wild, and the only one who ever told me that I deserved better. She had flirted with me for years, always towing the line, always testing the waters. I had been loyal to Claire. Had always brushed it off. But not anymore. I pulled my phone from my pocket and, right in front of Claire, I pulled up Emily's number. Claire's eyes widened in horror. Alex, no. I smirked as I pressed call. The phone rang once. Twice. Claire was still sitting there, frozen, her breath coming in short, panicked bursts. I could see the horror in her eyes, the slow realization that this was really happening. That I wasn't just threatening her, I was doing it. The third ring barely finished before Emily picked up. Alex? Her voice was smooth, warm, almost surprised. This is a surprise. Everything okay? I let my eyes stay on Claire as I answered. Yeah, I said, my voice calm, measured. I was just thinking about you. There was a pause. Then, a soft chuckle. Oh. What kind of thoughts? Claire made a strangled noise in the back of her throat. Emily had always been direct. She had never been shy about flirting with me, even in front of Claire. And now? Now she could probably hear something in my voice. Something was different. Something had changed. I was wondering if you wanted to grab a drink, I said, still watching Claire as I spoke. Tonight. Another pause. Then, I thought you were out of town. I smirked. Change of plans. Emily exhaled slowly, like she was considering. Is Claire with you? I saw Claire shake her head rapidly, her silent plea growing more desperate. She's here, I admitted. Emily's voice dipped slightly. And you're calling me in front of her? I felt Claire's fingers dig into the edge of the staircase like she was holding herself together by sheer force of will. Yeah, I said simply. A slow, knowing hum came through the phone. Interesting. Emily was no fool. She had known for years that something was off in my marriage. She had seen the way Claire pulled away from me, had noticed the way my wife's affection had dulled over time. She knew. And now, she had her confirmation. Are you free? I asked, making it clear I wasn't backing down. Another pause. Then, I'll meet you at O'Malley's. 9 o'clock. I smiled. See you then. I hung up. Claire let out a shaky breath, her face pale, her hands trembling. Alex, please, she whispered. Don't do this. I tucked my phone back into my pocket, tilting my head slightly. Why not? It's just a drink. She shook her head violently. No, it's not. You're trying to hurt me. I let out a bitter laugh. Hurt you? Claire, you destroyed me. She flinched. I stepped closer, looking down at her. You had your fun. You made your choices. Now, you get to live with them. Her lips parted, a sob caught in her throat. I love you. I scoffed. No, Claire. You love the idea of me. You love the security I give you. But you don't love me. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I do, she whispered. I made a mistake. Twice. She let out a strangled sob. I can't lose you. I stared at her for a long moment. Then, I leaned in close, so close she could feel my breath against her skin. Then you should have thought about that before you got into bed with someone else. Her face crumpled, and I turned away, grabbing my keys from the counter. She didn't try to stop me as I walked out the door. But I could still hear her crying as I stepped into the night. The drive to O'Malley's was a blur. My mind was a hurricane of emotions, rage, betrayal, a dark, bitter satisfaction that I wasn't proud of but wasn't willing to fight either. Claire had shattered everything we built, and now she would feel what it was like to watch something she valued slip through her fingers. I pulled into the parking lot, shutting off the engine. O'Malley's was a cozy, dimly lit bar on the edge of town, the kind of place where regulars nursed their drinks for hours and no one asked too many questions. Tonight, it was exactly what I needed. Inside, Emily was already there, seated at a small booth near the back, a glass of red wine in front of her. She looked up as I approached, and a slow, knowing smile curved her lips. Wow, she murmured as I slid into the seat across from her. I wasn't sure if you'd actually show. I exhaled sharply, running a hand through my hair. Me neither. She studied me for a moment, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. So, are we gonna pretend this is just a friendly drink? I let out a short, humorless laugh. Do you want to? Emily tilted her head, considering. Then, she leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice. No. I don't think I do. I swallowed hard, my pulse picking up. She had always been bold, never the type to tiptoe around something when she wanted it. And right now, I could tell she wanted this. Wanted me. But was that really why I was here? Was this just about revenge, about proving something to Claire, or was there something deeper, something I had buried under years of blind loyalty? Emily sighed, leaning back. Look, Alex. I've known you a long time. And I've watched you give everything to a woman who didn't deserve it. So if you need someone to remind you what it's like to be wanted, I'm right here. I felt my grip tighten around my glass. Wanted. That word. Claire had thrown it in my face like it excused what she did. And yet, sitting here, across from Emily, really looking at her, I realized I had spent years feeling exactly the same way. Unseen. Unappreciated. Like no matter how hard I tried, I would never be enough. Emily reached across the table, her fingers brushing over mine. Say the word, Alex. I stared at her hand, soft, warm, real. And then, without thinking, I reached for it. Claire wanted a war. She was about to get one. Emily's fingers curled around mine, firm yet soft, her touch sending a wave of something unfamiliar through me. Not just desire, but validation. I wasn't some forgotten fixture in a failing marriage. I wasn't just Claire's safe bet. I was a man. And for the first time in years, I felt seen. Emily's gaze flicked to my lips, then back to my eyes. Let's get out of here, she murmured. I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the decision press down on me. But it wasn't hesitation, it was acceptance. Claire had crossed the line first. Now it was my turn. I tossed a few bills on the table, standing up. Emily followed, sliding her hand into mine as we walked toward the exit. The night air was cool, but my skin burned with adrenaline. My place is 10 minutes from here, Emily said, unlocking her car. I hesitated. Not because I was second-guessing myself, I wasn't. But because I wanted Claire to know. I wanted her to feel what I had felt. The gut-wrenching pain. The sickening realization that trust had been obliterated. So I pulled out my phone. I won't be coming home tonight. Don't wait up. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then. Claire, Alex, please don't do this. Please come home. We can fix this. I smirked, tucking my phone away without responding. Let's go, I told Emily. And just like that, I let go of the man I used to be. Emily's apartment was small but warm, dimly lit with soft music playing in the background. I barely noticed any of it. My mind was still spinning, fueled by anger, betrayal, and the weight of what I was about to do. She poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handing me one before settling on the couch beside me. You don't have to talk, she said softly. We can just exist for a little while. I took a slow sip, letting the burn of the alcohol chase away the last remnants of guilt. Claire hadn't thought about me when she let another man touch her. So why should I think about her now? Emily reached for my hand again, and this time, I didn't hesitate. Her lips were soft, warm, welcoming, and when she kissed me, I let myself drown in it. Let myself forget. Let myself become someone else. My phone buzzed against my thigh. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. Emily pulled back slightly, her brow furrowing. You sure you don't want to get that? I exhaled sharply, reaching into my pocket. Claire's name lit up my screen. 10 missed calls. I swiped to reject the incoming one. Stop calling me. A few seconds later, another message came through. Claire, I'm outside. My stomach twisted. Emily saw the change in my expression immediately. What is it? I ran a hand down my face. Claire. She's here. Emily blinked. Then, to my surprise, she smiled. Of course she is. I stood up, moving to the window. Sure enough, Claire's car was parked across the street. She wasn't inside it, though. She was standing on the sidewalk, arms wrapped around herself, looking straight at Emily's apartment door. Emily came up behind me, her voice calm. "What do you want to do?" I watched my wife, the woman who had shattered me, standing there, probably begging for me to come back. For a brief moment, I imagined the man I used to be. The one who would have run outside. Who would have forgiven her. Who would have fought for the marriage she had never really valued. But that man was gone. I turned away from the window, looking at Emily. "Pour another drink," I murmured. "She can wait." I didn't rush outside. I let Claire wait. Emily poured another drink, just as I'd asked, her expression unreadable. "She's losing it out there," she murmured, glancing toward the window. "Good. She should lose it. She should feel every second of this." Claire had taken our marriage, our trust, and treated it like something disposable. Something that could be tossed aside for a moment of excitement, for a younger man's attention. Now it was her turn to sit in the wreckage. I picked up my drink, took a slow sip. The warmth of the whiskey spread through me, dulling the edges of the chaos in my head. Another buzz. Another message. "Claire, please, Alex. Just come talk to me." Emily smirked, looking at my phone screen. "She really thought you'd come running back, didn't she?" I exhaled sharply. "Yeah. Do you want to go out there?" I thought about it. I thought about standing in front of her, looking her in the eyes, watching as she was the one left begging this time. And then I thought about how much I no longer cared. I set my drink down. No. Let her sit with it. Emily ran a finger along the rim of her glass. "You know what's funny," she mused. "If she'd never cheated, you wouldn't be here right now." I let out a humorless chuckle. "Yeah. Guess that means she did me a favor." Emily leaned in, her voice lower now. "So what happens next?" I looked at her. And for the first time all night, I truly smiled. I make sure she never forgets this. Claire was still outside. 15 minutes. Then 20. Then 30. She didn't leave. She didn't call again. She just waited. I let her. Inside, Emily stretched out on the couch, watching me with something between curiosity and satisfaction. "She's not going anywhere," she murmured. "No," I said. "She's not." And that was the difference between us. When Claire had cheated, she had expected forgiveness. Expected me to be the same loyal, devoted husband she had always taken for granted. But that man was gone. I grabbed my phone, my thumb hovering over Claire's number. And then, with a smirk, I did something that I knew would break her. I snapped a photo. Me, lounging with Emily, our drinks in hand, her fingers lightly resting on my leg. I attached it to a message. "Me, you wanted to talk. Here's my answer." Then I hit send. Seconds later, from outside, I heard the sharp, choked sob of a woman who had just realized she had lost everything. A woman who had never truly believed I would stop loving her. Emily tilted her head, watching my reaction. "Feel better?" I downed the rest of my drink, relishing the burn. Then, without a trace of hesitation, I replied. "Yeah. I do."